Hi, and welcome to Ida and her books. I'm Ida, and these are my books. In this video, I will be telling you how I rate the Chronicles of Narnia series. Because I have recently listened to all the audiobooks, and I have given them a rating on Goodreads, so I wanted to talk a little bit about them. This video is full of spoilers, by the way, for like the entire series. For those of you who don't know, the Chronicles of Narnia series was written by C.S. Lewis about 100 years ago. He was friends with Tolkien, who wrote the Lord of the Rings series. It's a series of middle grade novels about a magical country called Narnia, where you can go by magical means. And it's about these children who go on adventures in this country. There are 7 books in this series. They were published not in chronological order, so like the book that takes place first was the 5th book written, I think, so yeah, it's a little bit weird like that, but I have read them in the chronological order according to the history of Narnia. I'm just gonna go from the worst to the best and tell you a little bit about each book. The book I liked the least of the Chronicles of Narnia series was The Horse Neighs Boy. This is the 3rd book in the chronological order. It takes place during the reign of the 4 siblings, Susan, Peter, Lucy and Edmund, so it takes place basically at the same time as the Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe, but not really. It's about a boy who is a slave, I think, to this man who he overhears this man one day talking about selling him as a slave to someone else, and he decides to run away, and so he takes this other guy's horse, who is a talking horse from Narnia, and they run away together, wanting to get to Narnia. On the way they meet a girl and another talking horse who are also going to Narnia, and they start traveling together to get there. And the reason why this is the lowest on my list is partly because when I read them the first time, this is one of the most boring stories, because it's a lot of just traveling. It takes place over a bit longer period of time and then some of the other novels in this series, and it's about a character that you have no real attachment to. He never shows up in any other stories, so this is like outside of the regular series, or so to speak. I can't do words. So all other books are about humans from our world going to Narnia. This is about a boy already living in this magical world. He just is from a different country, and so it is different in that aspect. It doesn't even really take place that much in Narnia. So yeah, so this is one of the lowest rated. I gave it 3 stars, however. It was still quite good, just not as good as the rest. The next book is, I think it's just called The Final Battle, The Sista Striden. This is the last book in the series. Once again, this book isn't from the perspective of someone coming to Narnia from our world. It's written from the perspective of the current king. Someone shows up claiming to be Aslan or speaking from Aslan, and starts to basically sell like the talking horses and other magical creatures as slaves to other countries, and just starts making money off of that. And people think it's Aslan's bidding, so they just can't do anything about it. And this king is convinced that it's not Aslan, and so he gets help from some humans from this world, Jill and Eustace, I think his name is, to save Narnia from this imposter. And the reason why this is next to last on my list is because, once again, it's not from the perspective of the children coming to Narnia, and I found it a little bit confusing in some aspects, both the general story, but also the ending, where it turns out that Narnia, where the entire series has taken place, isn't the actual Narnia. It's like a shadow of Narnia, and so there's another real Narnia or something, and everyone gets to go there, and then Peter and Edmund and Lucy gets to come back to Narnia, even though Aslan said they couldn't, but it's like the new Narnia, so maybe it doesn't count. And it also, plot twist, turns out that the reason everyone's back in Narnia is because they died in a train accident, and so now they're in Narnia permanently. And not just them, also the four siblings' parents also apparently died in this train accident. And so they're also in Narnia. And so everyone is just like reunited at the end. So even the two children from the Magician's Nephew are also in Narnia now. So apparently they also died or something. And it's just a weird ending. It's like sort of sentimental and sweet, but at the same time just really strange. And so for being the last book in the series, it just didn't hold up. Third book on this list is The Magician's Nephew. The reason for this is the first time I read this book, it was incredibly boring, and I've tried to read the physical book again, and I read like 5 pages and I just couldn't get into it. But when I listened to audiobook, which I also listened to on double speed, so it's like 2 hours long, I just flew through it because it's 2 hours long. And it's not as tedious if you listen to it, because it's quite fast. It only takes place over like 3 days or something. And so it's about Diggory and Polly. Diggory's uncle, who he lives with, has created these magical rings where you can travel between different worlds. And so he tricks Polly into using one of the rings, and Diggory has to go after her to get her back. And when they do, they meet this woman who will become the White Witch in Narnia. I can't remember her name either. It's difficult to remember names when I only listen to the books. Anyway, they meet this woman who will become the White Witch and accidentally bring her back to our world. And it's only like 3 days, so they come back to our world, and then it's one night, and then they go to Narnia, and then they spend like 1 night there, maybe 2 at most. I think 1 night before the story's over. And so it's really, really short in that way. You can tell it's been written afterwards, especially in other books, because they only mention the people from this book in the last 2, because it doesn't feel like they're introducing Narnia for the first time. I do really enjoy it, however. And I like the world between worlds. It's like this giant forest with a bunch of ponds, where each pond is supposedly a new world. And when you're there, it's like you forget why you're there or like where you were going. It's just really peaceful, and so you just want to stay there forever. And it's a really interesting concept, and it would be very interesting to have seen more of the other worlds. You can see the one where they find the White Witch, and that one it's a dying world, and that's interesting. And so there's a lot of interesting concepts in this book that I think they could have built more upon in other books. It's already 7 books long, so maybe not. My 4th favorite book is Prince Caspian. In Swedish, it's Caspian, Prince of Narnia. Prince Caspian. This is 4th on my list because I feels like the majority of the book, like 1 entire hour out of 4 in this book, is dedicated to just retelling the prince's story. And so it's like the 4 children get to Narnia, they sit down with this dwarf, and he just tells them about the prince for an hour, and then they find the prince, and then they battle, and then it's over. And so I don't know, the pacing gets weird, but it's good. I like Prince Caspian. I think in this book especially it becomes like an issue that the children, I think, like, oh, this boy is, I don't know how many years old, maybe 12, and he's supposed to become king now and fight this huge battle with his uncle to take over the kingdom again. And I think he's too young for that, but the books are for younger children, and so obviously the ages are for them to identify themselves with. And I mean, it's a magical country. I can't speak today. It's a magical country, so they can do whatever they want, but it's just, yeah, something I thought about. My 3rd top book is The Silver Chair. The reason is that I really appreciate the mystery in this book. I really like Jill, who gets introduced in this book. She does, right? Yes. I don't really like Eustace because his character development like takes a few steps back from the end of the previous book, which is sad. But I like Jill, and I like the traveling and the giants and like the different parts of Narnia you haven't seen before. I like that. I like the prince. I don't remember his name either. I don't remember anyone's name. I like the prince that they're searching for. I think what they did with him was very fascinating. I think it was interesting, and I very much enjoyed it. This is one of the books where I had like these images in my head where I remember like certain scenes, not like entire scenes, and either just like these images from the book, how I imagined them when I read them, but I couldn't really place where they came from until I reread them. I suspected it from the Chronicles of Narnia, but I haven't been sure. But that's one of the reasons why I wanted to reread the series in the first place. And I really just enjoyed it. I think it was great. My runner-up for favorite book in this series is The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe. Reason for this is that this is the most popular book. I've seen the movie, both the most recent and the older version of the movie. It is like my introduction to the Narnia series. It's a lot of nostalgia that's part of it, but also just being a well-written story. There are some weird things, like once again the children put on the throne when they're like 9 years old. I'm not sure how old the older children are, but I think Lucy's like 9 or 12, no, 10. They're really young. Anyway, I enjoy Mr. Tumnus, and I enjoy I enjoy the witch as a villain. And the problem I have with this book is that it takes place also over just like a few days. It's like 4 days, and then it's supposed to be ready to have this huge battle with the witch and the children, and unprepared and have barely seen a sword before and is supposed to go out in battle. So I think they could have spent some more time developing them or like training them for this. I also think that the ending is a little rushed. I think it would have been fun to see more of them as kings and queens. You get that in The Horse and the Boy, the horse and his boy, the boy and his horse, the horse and his boy, the horse and his boy, where they meet the kings and queens from this book. But I would like to see more of them as kings and queens, because I think that when they come back in later books and they're like, oh, we were great at arching. When they claim to have certain skills that obviously have because they spent like 50 years on the throne, like sure, but we didn't get to see you develop them. You just told us in like a few pages, and yeah, that would be more fun to see. But I still really like this book. The best of these books is The Voyage of the Dawn Treader. This is the only one I gave 5 stars. I really enjoyed the multiple parts of this book. The other books had more of like, this is the premise, then the big happening, and then it's the end. This book takes place over months, I think, and there are several different things happening. They are looking for these 7 lords that were sent away from Narnia, and they find them like pretty much one after the other, and also searching for the land where Aslan comes from in the east, where they think it is. And there are so many little things happening, and so many like different, I'm not sure what to call it, but it's like, yeah, more things happen in this book than the others. This is also one of the books where I have like images, I remember images from when I read the books the first time, where I was quite certain it was from this book. It could also have been from another book, but I was quite certain it was from this one, and it was. And I thoroughly enjoyed reading it again. I think this is also one where you get to discover more of Narnia outside of Narnia, the rest of the world, and I think it's really fascinating. It takes place on a boat, you get to meet Eustace for the first time, and he's an asshole, but no, he learns. And so I just really enjoyed it. That is my ratings for the Chronicles of Narnia series. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you next time. Bye!